Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A little back and forth between Mikaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan ahead of their fight. Mikaela Mayer said, good strength and conditioning session this morning. Interviews for Ryan versus Mayer now. Someone's got to sell the fight since my opponent has gone silent. To which Sandy Ryan, the defending champion, the traveling champion, said, go talk your bullshit. Mikaela responded by saying, all facts. Feel free to speak up when you detect a lie. To which Sandy replied, I don't need to speak up. I'm going to show up September 27th. Mikaela responded by saying, LOL, I know exactly who wrote this tweet for you.
I love the fight.
I love the show, though I would have loved it even more if Top Rank would have been able to make the Lopez versus Brian Norman fight. Brian Norman Jr., who's currently in talks to unify titles with Jaron Ennis. Before that, the plan was to put Teofimo in the ring with him, but we all know what happened. Teofimo screwed that up, so just imagine that you would have got Lopez versus Norman, Mayer versus Ryan, a side order of Xander Zayas, and a side order of Shushu Carrington
in New York.
Mikaela and Sandy are headlining the show, but neither Mikaela or Sandy are New York natives. Initially, what they wanted was for Teofimo and Brian to headline the show.
It's rough.
The silver lining is that Xander Zayas, a Puerto Rican native of Puerto Rico, and there being a large Puerto Rican contingent in the New York City area, that will still put some asses in some seats. Shushu Carrington from Brooklyn.
Where's Brooklyn at? Where's Brooklyn at?
He'll be able to get some Brooklynites to come down to the Hulu Theater in Manhattan. I think they'll still be able to move some tickets for this show, but I can't help but think they would have been able to move even more if it were Lopez versus Norman in the main event.
Show must go on.
And it's going to. I've no doubts that Mayer versus Ryan will deliver. Between Mikaela Mayer's boxing acumen and Sandy Ryan's aggressive approach, it's going to be an action fight because Sandy's going to make it an action fight. She's going to press the issue even if Mikaela doesn't. Even if Mikaela hangs back and moves around and boxes, and I think she's going to. That's why I have her winning.
I think a lot of people were surprised to hear me say that I think Mikaela's going to win a points decision.
In terms of entertainment and entertaining styles, I do find Sandy's fights more entertaining than Mikaela's because Sandy's more the puncher, the bruiser, the brawler.
I like action fighters. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not one of these sweet science snobs that pretend it's at all entertaining to watch fighters fence and fiddle for 2 to 3 minutes in a round.
I like action. I think most people like action, want action, and Sandy's gonna bring it, but that doesn't mean she wins the fight. Mikaela's more experienced as a professional as Sandy. Similar amateur background, but in the paid ranks, in the pro ranks, Mikaela has a lot more experience than Sandy.
They're both statuesque for the weight. They're both long and limber fighters, though Sandy's more big-bodied.
She's a true welter, whereas Mikaela's a smaller fighter that moved up in weight, though in terms of height and length, the tail of the tape, they're quite similar. The difference being, Sandy has strength, Mikaela has speed.
Mikaela
is the more cerebral fighter of the two, though she's durable. I think she's proven that. She proved that in the Maiva Hamadouche fight, the Alicia Baumgartner fight. I've yet to see Mikaela Mayer hurt or rattled or woozy. Mikaela Mayer's more durable, I think, than Terry Harper, who Sandy Ryan stopped in her last fight. Stopping Mikaela, I don't see it.
Mikaela's the house fighter in this fight, fighting on home soil. No, she's not a New York native, but she is an American national.
And so long as she can make it competitive, so long as she can make the rounds close enough that the judges could swing them either way, in all likelihood, they're gonna swing them Mikaela's way.
Sandy needs a knockout, and I don't think she's gonna get it.
On a top-ranked show, on foreign soil, I think Sandy's going to be looking for the knockout, and I think Mikaela knows Sandy's going to be looking for the knockout. She knows she's going to be aggressive, and she's going to use that against her to walk her into straight punches while she's on her toes, moving around and using a ring, boxing her up.
If she gets past the straight punches and gets in close, Mikaela's going to tie her up.
Smother. A lot of people don't like that, but it works. If you have an overly aggressive opponent in front of you that wants to throw combinations, one way you can stop them from doing that is to smother them. Tie them up.
So I've got Mikaela on points.
Good evening, man. Good evening, man. Full transparency again. It's been days. We waited 3 days. We waited like 3 days for an offer for another offer to even come back. We waited 3 days before they reached back out. It was crazy. So anyway, when we did, they came back out still low, still short. We can make this fight happen. If Eddie Hearn is who he say he is, he got Turkey Al-Sheikh in his corner, we can make this work. We most definitely did not price ourselves. That's why this is even being talked about, because you know Eddie wouldn't have had a price or problem coming out telling you we outpriced ourselves. We did not at all. We're ready to go. My son is not optimistic anymore about this fight happening. I totally am, because I know my son can beat Jerron Ennis, and this is a great opportunity, but I can't let him go out like that. I can't let him do it for what they trying to say. I can't do that. But either way it go, we ready to go, man. Full transparency. So, but yeah, Eddie, let's go.
Brian Norman Sr. says that they're not pricing themselves out, because if they had, Eddie would have come right out and said it already. Eddie did say, we've sent 3 offers already. That team are either deluded or are just using Boots' name. Interviews are dropping soon. Hopefully they are more serious than their negotiations suggest.
Eddie Hearn says Matchroom has made 3 offers to do the fight. How many offers has Top Rank made to do the fight?
Because I see a few members of the boxing community being willfully obtuse, pretending that these guys are on an even playing field when they're not. When you compare what Jaron Ennis made for his last fight, in excess of $3 million, versus what Brian Norman made in his last fight,
It's nowhere near $1 million. It's not even $500,000.
you're talking about $99,000. That's what Brian Norman made in the Giovanni Santillán fight. $99,000. Not $1 million, not $500,000, $99,000. It's quite clear who the A-side fighter here is and who's really trying to make this fight, because it's Matchroom making all the offers, not Top Rank. It's not Brian Norman via Top Rank making offers to do the show. It's Jaron Ennis via Matchroom making offers to do the show, and he already makes more than you do. In his last fight, he filled out the place with upwards of 14,000 people, whereas Brian, in his last fight, fought on an undercard.
He wasn't the main event.
And yet I see some people saying that this is a preemptive duck from Boots, a preemptive duck.
What?
If that were the case, they would have never made him an offer at all. They've made offers to all 3 champions in the welterweight division. Anybody and everybody they could find that either has a belt or is in position to get one. Brian Norman included. So if it were about ducking Brian, they would have just focused on Mario Barrios and a Montestanionis.
They wouldn't have made Brian an offer at all, let alone 3 offers consecutively, just for Brian and his team to turn it down. What, it's not enough?
Oh?
It's not enough for a fighter who only fought for $100,000 in their last fight.
We don't know what the exact dollar amount is, what the first offer was, what the second offer was, or what the third offer was. We don't know, but what we do know is what Brian made in his last fight.
Wasn't 7 figures, nowhere near.
Whereas Jaron Ennis, he made over $3 million in his last fight. So I don't get the sense that Eddie Hearn is lowballing these guys. What I think these guys are doing is trying to squeeze blood out of a grape.
They're on the verge of pricing themselves out.
Then why are people accusing Jaron Ennis of being the one that's ducking? A preemptive duck. How does that work? Why are they saying that?
Those are Crawford fans.
Pardon me, not Crawford fans, because I'm a Crawford fan. I'm a big fan of Terrence Crawford, but I'm not a fanatic. I'm not a fanboy.
What does Terrence Crawford have to do with this?
The people that are accusing Jaron Ennis of ducking, quote-unquote ducking, or whatever it is, whatever narrative they're trying to propagate, they're only doing so because they're angry that Jaron Ennis, for a long time, used Terrence Crawford's name. Clout chased him.
And I'm not saying that he didn't. He did. He definitely did. I agree with that. But that has nothing to do with this. And 2 wrongs don't make a right.
What's the rationale? That because Jaron Ennis was name-dropping Terrence Crawford in interviews, it's okay for Brian Norman to price himself out? Is that the logic?
That ain't logic.
This is bigger than your feelings about Terrence Crawford and Jaron Ennis or whatever did or didn't happen between them. This is bigger than that because the welterweight division needs this fight. Neither Brian Norman or Jaron Ennis are going to be able to get a Montestanionis in the ring or Mario Barrios in the ring.
If they don't unify with each other, we don't get a unification match.
Not no time soon. And without knowing what number exactly Eddie Hearn already offered these guys, when you advocate for him to offer them even more money, you know what happens? You know what might happen?
Hello, pay-per-view!
Here comes another box office fight, because when the operational costs go past a certain number, the only hope of getting that money back is to bill it as a pay-per-view. Is that what you guys want?
You want to have to pay per view.
These managers in boxing, these fans that like to act as managers, don't know how stupid they sound when they say this stuff. Because if Jaron Ennis is getting somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million, and that's the same number that Brian Norman and his team are looking for, that puts the pot for just those two fighters at $6 million.
Let me refresh your memory.
Do you remember when Triller put up $6 million for Lopez versus Kambosos? Do you remember that? And do you remember that they wanted to bill that fight as a pay-per-view?
Did you think that was pay-per-view worthy? Were you going to come out of pocket to see that fight?
Do you want to have to come out of pocket to see this one? Because that's what you're advocating for.
Or are you another one of these useless pieces of shit that steals all the content you watch, pretending that your opinion matters? You view all of this as a victimless crime because you don't pay for anything anyway.
Too many pay-per-views in America is the reason the market for boxing is shrinking. And these fighters and their inflated purse demands are why there are more pay-per-views in this era than any era before it, because all these guys expect the promoters to break the bank. I think Boots versus Norman is a great fight, but I don't think I should have to pay per view to see it.
Maybe on the undercard of a bigger show, but not as a main event unto itself.
When these fans keep promoting and pushing these fighters to ask for these exorbitant dollar amounts, it comes at the expense of the sport, and either they don't realize it or they don't care because they just steal everything anyway.
Useless.
This fight would be a great addition to DAZN's regular schedule at a reasonable price, but it's sounding more and more to me like these guys are just pricing themselves out. They're trying to squeeze blood out of a grape. They're asking for money they can't hope to make fighting anyone else.
Not like you're gonna get a Montestanionis or Mario Barrios in the ring anyway, because you're not.
I knew this was too good to be true. Finally, in men's super middleweight news, the eyes don't lie, Chico. Edgar Berlanga predicts a 6th-round KO of Canelo Alvarez. A textbook example of faking it until you make it.
That's what this is.
It's the first big rodeo for Edgar Berlanga, and he's digging in his boots and riding high in the saddle as he hopes to rope the super middleweight king, Canelo Alvarez. The bout between Alvarez and Berlanga will take place on September 14th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. But a precursor clash, albeit verbally, has already taken place during the contentious pre-fight media tour. Alvarez gave Berlanga pelvic gyrations and spanked the air in front of him during a profanity-laced lashing, while Berlanga whipped back with combinations of expletives, indicating he'd use both brains and brawn to beat the future Hall of Famer.
So when a guy like Edgar, a guy who's as inexperienced and untested as Edgar, actively advocates for a fight with someone as experienced as Canelo, as battle-tested, that is a short-term strategy.
Meaning, you hope to make as much money as you can in the short term because you already know you're not cut out for the long term, for the long haul.
He's in it for the short term.
Edgar Berlanga may be biting off more than he can chew for his first world title shot, but the quote-unquote chosen one has no choice but to roll with the punches during a career-defining fight that has landed sooner than it should have. The trash talk is part of the sport. Fuck him, Berlanga said. There is no more respect for any opponent once the contract is signed. It's business. He's going to try to kill me in front of my family. This is gladiator shit, and I'm going to do the same to him. On my son, let me drop dead. I never fear no one. I'm going to go out on my shield, and he better go out on his.
Sounds good.
You can't be planning to have a long and prosperous career if you're taking on a fight like this with a fighter like this ahead of schedule, and that's what Edgar is doing. There's so much that he hasn't prepared for, and that was deliberate. That was by design. If you haven't fought any of the somebodies, any of the solid fighters at this weight,
it's because you didn't want to.
I didn't like it when he smiled at me at the press conference. I felt like he was taking me as a joke. I know his intentions. I'm from the hood in New York. If you are smiling at my face, That is disrespectful.
Nobody cares if you're from the hood because the vast majority of boxers in boxing are from a hood.
Berlanga is portraying a world of confidence despite not having the dossier to justify it against the caliber of opponent like Canelo. After starting his career with 16 consecutive first-round knockouts, the Brooklyn-based Puerto Rican has fizzled and lost steam while stepping up in competition with just 72 rounds fought compared to 496 from Alvarez. He will have a steep learning curve to account for Alvarez's incredible experience.
Ideally, before fighting someone like Canelo, you have those litmus tests, those acid tests against those solid fighters. That hasn't happened for Edgar because they didn't want it to happen. Think about the progression. From Padraig McCrory, an unheralded Padraig McCrory, to Canelo Alvarez? You don't think you could have squeezed in a former champion in Caleb Plant or a Jose Uzcategui, maybe a Carlos Gangara, before facing someone like Canelo? No, you could have. You just didn't want to.
I am training for IQ, intelligence, and being smart, said Berlanga. Anyone who beat Canelo had that. At the end of the day, I'm a star myself. For real, for real. He was going to fight either me or David Benavidez or eventually retire. And I was going to come in and take his spot. I have everything. I can fight. I look good. I'm appealing. I'm Puerto Rican with an island behind me. I have the whole package, which is what you need in the sport of boxing to become a star.
You also need skill.
Rounds in the bank and experience if you're going to make it, but Edgar's one of those guys who's just faking it until he makes it. Except he's not going to make it.
He's going to lose.
Munguia is long, big, and throws a lot of punches, but he fell for a lot of Canelo's traps, said Berlanga. He gave up his height and reach and moved forward a lot. I thought it was going to be a way better fight for Munguia. Berlanga then lobbed personal jabs at Alvarez while predicting a 6th round knockout, a stoppage 2 rounds sooner than his adversary predicted. A lot of Mexicans don't like Alvarez, said Berlanga. I go to Mexico a lot. They don't like him. His people are my fans. They like us. Puerto Ricans don't hate on me crazy like that. He's a shit-eating person. He's shit. He has money, but money doesn't make you. It's about how you treat people. People love me because of that.
Cut the crap.
I'm sure there's a couple of people south of the border that don't like Canelo Alvarez, but you're not fighting Canelo because of them. You're fighting him because of the people that do like Canelo, the ones who buy his pay-per-views and attend his fights, that if he had the same resume without this marquee value, you wouldn't fight him.
You wouldn't want to.
Like all the other guys at this weight that you didn't want to fight, because you can't make the money with them you make with Canelo. And why do you make money with Canelo?
Because of his fans, because of the people that pay to see him.
Do you need to tell yourself that he is the social pariah in all of this, and you're not? You're a lamb to the slaughter, and you know what you're doing. You know you likely lose this fight, but this is not the only fight you might lose. The difference is this one pays better.
So you won't swerve this one. You won't avoid this one. You fake it until you make it. Say whatever you need to say.
We see through you like you claim to see through Canelo.
It's nothing against Edgar, but like I said, think about the progression. Padraig McCrory to Canelo Alvarez?
Clearly, you're not in it for the long haul. You want to make your money so you can take your money and run.
An obvious strategy.